So on this week's episode of Be More Super, the podcast, we've got an amazing guest coming up very shortly on the 2nd of October. It's already been seen in the States, but they're leaving the best till last on the 2nd of October on Sky One. We've got the wonderful Brave New World, and we've got the wonderful actor Joseph Morgan, the star of Brave New World. Joseph, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. And how's life treating you at the moment? I know you've probably been asked this every single interview, but for the fans out there, how are you keeping yourself busy?
I'm trying to stay creative, man. That's the thing that keeps me sane. I've been doing a lot of writing. I've been writing a horror film, which I'm planning to direct. I don't know if you know this, but I have a little production company with my wife, and we've made a few short films that have gone to festivals, and I directed on the show I was on, the originals. I did 3 episodes. And so it's a passion of mine, directing, and so I'm writing this. I've been into a world of horror over the last year in my mind, as well as in the real world, you know.
But I know the pandemic is a horrible thing, but I suppose on the flip side, it's a giant reset button on humanity. But the creative side of things coming off the back of this, there's going to be so many more films and theatre productions and books coming out, which is going to be fantastic. So I suppose there's always a silver lining. So let's, before we go into Brave New World, because you're English, well, from Wales.
I'm born in England, and then I grew up in Wales.
Right, okay. And you go over to the States, you make it big. So upon graduation from the Central School of Speech and Drama, Peter Weir snapped you up. Is that normal to happen straight away from graduation?
You know, like, you hear about it. Like, the big one for me when I was in drama school was a few years older than me in Guildhall was Orlando Bloom. And so it was the talk of all the drama schools when he got snapped up for Lord of the Rings, you know. It was like, oh my God, this is, incredible. So it really was kind of like a dream come true when I got the Peter Weir film, Master and Commander, and was off to Mexico. And I'd only been abroad about twice in my life, to France and Amsterdam with my parents or whatever. So, and actually I've been on a skiing trip with the school to Canada. So to go to Mexico and be on this movie for 5 months was incredible. Yeah.
That is awesome. And what was it like at the Central School of Speech and Drama? Because I've had a few friends that went to RADA and Lambda. And, what was it like? Did they prepare you, for what, you're experiencing now?
In some ways they did, yeah. What you learn is a huge toolkit of techniques that then you can cherry pick from, find the process and the method that works for you, but they certainly teach you a process. So the idea is, hopefully that you go in there with some talent and you learn ways of breaking down a script, ways of tackling character, of figuring out how to refine your performance and all of that kind of stuff. So it is useful in that way. One thing I will say from my time there is it's very theatre based. So I believe we only had about a few hours of on-camera training, and that's been most of my career since I left, has been on camera. So I think, I don't know what it's like now, but I'm hoping that they integrate a little more camera training into it, as so much of the work comes from that.
And what did you take away from Master and Commander? Because obviously that was your first big thing. I mean, what sort of lessons did you take away from it?
I mean, that was my first thing, man, like straight from drama school. I missed the last term of drama school to go and film in Mexico. I get, so much, it really, such a kind of life-shaping experience. One of the things I'll say is quite easy early on to kind of to accept it as a new norm, especially if you're young, like, okay, I'm in Mexico, I'm filming this film, this is how my life's going to go now. And, why have they called me to set? They're not ready for me. And this is, ridiculous. And I remember a British actor, James Darcy, took me aside like at the first hint of that from me, they went, listen, we're very, very lucky to be here making this film and to be part of this kind of creative process. And so, you know, that's not the attitude to take with it. And I thought, oh, okay, oops, yeah. And that really stuck with me then through the rest of it. And then one other thing I took away very early on in my career, my second job was dramatic adaptation of Henry VIII with Ray Winston. And I've since worked with Ray again later on in Ben-Hur. But in that early time, I just remember him being so adamant that it was like it takes a village on set, and don't treat me like I'm sort of with these kid gloves, like, oh, let's get Ray out of here and then we'll shoot these shots on the background. Like I stayed till the scene's finished. I'm part of the whole thing. And it just made me think that's how I want to be on set. Like the whole thing should feel like a team effort. Everyone should support each other, and that way we feel more comfortable, you know, in doing our jobs.
That is awesome. And Ray is such a character. He just seems so effortless in his acting approach. But looking back at your career and going from Casualty to Hollywood, I think Casualty, to explain it to the American viewers and listeners, Casualty is a bit like the British version of ER.
I think that's a stretch, but yeah, maybe.
It is, but the British families out there would play the game of guess what's going to happen at the start of every episode. You get a guy going up a tree with a chainsaw, and you're thinking, oh, you know what's going to happen there. But your road to Hollywood, you know, how easy was it? I mean, did it scare you? I mean, did you have any bad experiences, good experiences? I mean, how was it for you?
You know, it was a bit of a roller coaster because, like I said, you know, I came from drama school and went straight into Master and Commander, and I'd seen what happened with Orlando Bloom, so I was like, right, I'm on the rocket ship. See you later, guys.
If he can do it, I can do it.
You know, and I've always managed to work to make a living as an actor, but I've had long periods in between during the, you know, the beginning half of my career, which I would say basically is leading up to Vampire Diaries, really, was the period where I would be always working, but in and out of work. You know, there'd be big periods of time where I think, am I ever going to work again? And then something would happen at the last possible minute. And I think, oh, I knew I was going to get something, but you know, you're fighting for it. And I've always been a fan of American film. You know, Tarantino was what inspired me early on to want to direct and write. And then I thought I'll get a background in acting first, and that'll help me move into that. And that was how I started acting. And then I kind of fell in love with acting for a long time and moved away from it. But yeah, it's been up and down. I've been back and forth to America since Master and Commander. I went to LA when I was in Mexico filming Master and Commander to get an agent, and I did get an agent who then later became my manager, and I'm still with him to this day. And I went back over the years, you know, trying to grab a job, but just staying for a few months at a time. And then I was doing Casualty, you know, after periods of like getting work and not getting work. And it was during Casualty that I landed the role of Ben-Hur in a TV adaptation of Ben-Hur, you know, a 2-part television thing. And I thought, okay, this is my chance now. This is my golden window. So I went straight from doing Ben-Hur out to America, and I still had that manager, and I got a new agent out in America. And there was this big window before Ben-Hur came out where I could dine out on it. You know, I'm going to be Ben-Hur in Ben-Hur. And so, you know, I got signed to a great agent, and I just started securing jobs. I managed to get Immortals, which was that film with Mickey Rourke, and then I did another indie film, and then I stumbled upon Vampire Diaries, and I thought for a long time I wasn't going to do telly. I thought, like, I'm a diehard film guy, and then my best mate Matt Ryan, who is he plays Constantine in the series.
Do you know what? He is a lovely guy. I've met him a couple of times.
Oh, yeah.
And do you know what? The first time I met him, I actually sorted his phone out for him because he was having difficulty with it. Yeah. And he's always at the conventions, you know, in Wales.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they've just moved it to Telford, but yeah, he's just a diamond of a guy. He's lovely, really nice.
Yeah, top bloke. So we've been good mates since we were 16, but he came out to the States as well off the back of doing Hamlet with Jude Law, and he got himself on a TV show that was a spin-off of Criminal Minds with Forrest Whitaker, and he was earning big money, and he was doing he was in people's living rooms every week for this show, and I thought, actually, I might have been thinking all wrong about TV, and it feels like that's the way things are moving now. So I started going up for telly, and that's when I got Vampire Diaries, which really changed my life. From that point, then I got this huge, ravenous fan base, and went on to do my own show, The Originals, and it
Yeah.
it sort of skyrocketed things for me within that demographic, at least.
And why do you think the Americans like the British actors? Because they do, don't
They
they?
do. They,
You know, what do you reckon it is? Do you think it's the training? Do you think it's the accents? I
I
mean,
think it's the training. Certainly, it's like treated as a craft, and there's, you know. Um, there is a reverence for that, definitely. And then I think the accent as well. People go on and on about my accent here, which would be nothing special at home, but
yeah.
it's a novelty here.
But the thing
Um,
is, though, you've got quite a posh accent. To be fair,
I
I mean,
suppose,
I interviewed Jane Seymour a
right.
couple of nights ago, and her accent is like literally Queen's English. I'm from the Midlands, so for me, my accent's sort of all over the place. But I suppose you look at Hugh Grant and people like that, it's proper like. But yeah, you're right. You go in the middle of in America. I've been to Dallas and went to a coffee shop, ordered a coffee, and everyone looked around as if like something exotic was there, and it's hilarious, honestly.
Like,
So,
you remember in Love Actually when he's going like, they're getting him to say things like, say spoon. He's like, spoon. They're like,
yes,
oh,
or cheerio. For some
yeah.
reason, the Americans say cheerio all the time. You're like, why? And then when you say it, you think, oh yeah, it does actually sound very, very British.
I
So
mean,
let's talk about this new show that's coming out on the 2nd of October. If anyone's seen the trailer, visually, it's just epic. In America, it's already been aired and it's had rave reviews. So I don't want to spoil it too much for the UK listeners, but for the American listeners, you will know exactly what's happened. So you'll know more than me. So please, if you're going to tweet about this afterwards, please, yeah, don't spoil it for me. So if you could describe the show for the listeners and who you play.
okay. So Brave New World is based on a novel from the 1930s, and it takes place in an alternate future. And in this future, it's mostly set in New London, and babies are now born from test tubes. They're engineered, and they're given their place in society, their class, if you will, at birth. So some of them at the top of the pecking order there are alphas, right? And they live a very debaucherous lifestyle. It's very promiscuous. There's no monogamy, there's no privacy, but their life is a one long party and orgy and just endless kind of superficial fun. And then it goes all the way down the food chain, the betas, the deltas, the gammas, and at the very bottom are the epsilons. And the epsilons are, one egg is split into 96. So a lot of them are identical, and they clean up after the alphas. Basically, they're like the caretakers in this society. Their emotions are suppressed with alcohol, and they sweep up, they clean toilets, they do all the awful jobs that the alphas don't want to do. And my character, CJack 60, is an epsilon. And so there's a lot of epsilons that look identical to me in the show, which is kind of interesting, was interesting to film. And basically, there's a traumatic event that happens in the first episode, and it causes CJack 60 to start feeling emotions. And that's something which his kind don't do. And through the course of the series and the arrival of a savage from outside New London, John the Savage, played by Alden Ehrenreich, CJack 60 starts to question his place in society, his reality, starts to go, why are we, the epsilons, doing all of these terrible jobs? Why are we the oppressed in this society? And what if I could change that world? And so that's what the show is about, them sort of trying to break down this society in New London with the help of John the Savage.
So that could be London in the near future. What do you
Perhaps,
reckon?
yeah, we'll see. I mean, the amazing thing about this show was we filmed in Cardiff in these studios, but we filmed some of it in London as well. Our first day of filming was in the Walkie Talkie building, and they shot all the skyline of London. And then you see in the show they've enhanced the skyline to create this new London. What London would be was built up like that, and it's so incredible to see that.
And how did you prepare for the role of C-Jack 60? Because obviously, if you're playing lots of different roles in it, did you have to act differently, or was it a case of they were all acting the same because they were identical, or was it different?
Well, C-Jack 60 is different because of this traumatic experience he has. So
Right.
he's the odd one out then. So what I did to prepare for him was I started from a base of sort of like a child who experiences everything in the moment. They don't think too much about the past or worry too much about the future. They really are very present. And that's what I wanted for C-Jack 60. So each emotion that he starts to experience is a new thing for him, and he's discovering it in that moment. And I really wanted a sense of that throughout. So he grows as he develops this emotional vocabulary. And then for the other C-Jacks, I just kept it at that base level of them starting to experience things, but letting them go instantly as they happen, rather than C-Jack starting to question them as they happen.
Mm.
And the logistical process of that was interesting. So I'd shoot a scene where C-Jack 60 is sitting at a table with other C-Jacks, and we'd shoot it with main unit, and then I would come back about 2 weeks later, and they'd have the footage cut, the shots they wanted to use, and I would, with a B unit and some green screens, recreate the body posture of all the background artists who were sitting in the C-Jack costumes. I'd watch them very carefully and recreate those postures, and then they would cut out my face with visual effects and replace it on those background artists, so then they all had the same C-Jack face.
Wow, because I saw on your Instagram, I think it was on your Instagram, that you had some actual prosthetic heads,
There was masks as well. So
and they
what they
looked
would do
awesome.
is they give them the masks, especially in the group scenes, or if someone was out of focus, they could get away with just using the mask. If
Yeah.
not, the mask would be a starting point then for them to, use special effects to put my face over the top. But they were pretty crazy, those masks. Expensive as well. I had to have the full head cast mold, and with just the breathing holes where they cover your head in essentially what's like plaster of Paris.
Do you know what? I'm looking behind you to see if I can see any. Did you keep anything from the set, or?
I was desperate to nick one of those masks. They're like 10 grand each, so they kept them in a
That
lockbox.
is fine. I'm sure they won't miss it. You just
No,
put it
that's
on
what I
your head and
need.
walk off, and then
That's
think it's you.
exactly. Just walk.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm thinking is now if they get a season 2, they're going to try and cheat me out of it, because they got the mask, they did the whole visual scan of my
Oh.
face. They don't even need me. They just
But
carry on.
but the question is, if you played more than one character, did you get paid for more than one character?
Well, this would not for more than one C-Jack, no. And to
Okay.
say anything else would certainly be a
Spoil it.
spoiler. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, yes. So who do you think this show appeals to then? Because it was based on a book from 1931, which
Yeah.
really shocked me. Good old Huxley. Did you read the book before you actually took the part?
Yeah, I read the book before I shot the show, but
Right.
I read the 2 scripts, and I hadn't read the book as part of it. Wasn't part of my curriculum or anything. So I was really familiar with 1984, which is often said to be the flip side of this.
Yeah.
Um, but I hadn't read the book, and in fact, you know, quite honestly, I enjoyed the scripts more than I did the book. I feel like they brought them up to date. They brought the book up to date, and what they took from the book was really the world as Huxley imagined it, and then a starting point for the story. But if you see our finale, it's really nothing like the end of the book, and it leaves doors open to keep going. I think that this show is, you know, it's, first of all, you're correct, it's visually incredible.
Mm.
It's for anyone who wants any kind of escapism that shows us another version of a world that might be. And for me, the one thing that it has is that this is a version we haven't seen before. There's a tremendous amount of post-apocalyptic drama out there and dystopian drama. And this is, I would say, more utopian, at least at first view. It seems like the perfect society until you start peeling back the layers. But there's really no parallel I could draw between the way this future is painted and another show. It's completely new, and that came across even in the script, which is what excited me about it. And then,
Yeah.
the part, it was an interesting process signing up for it. You'll see when you see the show, CJack 60, we kind of touch base with him through the first 8 episodes. So he's sort of a small but integral part until the finale, where he just is all the way through it and kind of blows the world wide open. And that was a pitch given to me early on with the potential for this finale. And then should we go into a second season where that would grow into this, this driving force of the show. So it was very interesting to be, after going from kind of heading up my own show, to go into this slow burner of a role that would explode towards the end,
So when we talk about your fan base, because we've got a few fan questions,
Right.
your fan base is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, how does it feel like having the amount of followers that you have got? And does it change the way that you manage your social media?
Yeah, it has to really, when I started on Vampire Diaries, I realized, I was aware of Twitter before then. And then I saw these guys, because that was already a hit show when I joined it. I saw these guys with their Twitter following, and I thought, hey, they're onto something here. This is actually quite useful. And I signed on to Twitter before airing on Vampire Diaries. And I asked Nina Dobrev, one of the cast, can you tweet something just saying this is the guy playing Klaus? Because they talked about my character before he came on. And she did. I think I got like 22,000 overnight without even having aired on the show. And so I used to be more engaged in it, posting every day. But I found I had to distance myself from it slightly because it's a beast, and you start being very concerned with what everyone thinks. And there's no way that you can please everyone because there's opposing point of views on there. And,
Yeah.
then it starts infringing on your personal life as well. And so I found, I do try to stay quite engaged now, both on Twitter and on Instagram. But I found I have to do that slightly more at arm's length because people are so diehard about the shows and your character's romantic interests and your character's family and what he thinks of this character or that character. They confuse it with real life. And
Yeah.
that for me, I have to sort of draw a line now between my real life and my on-screen
Thing is,
exploits.
at the end of the day, this is your job, isn't it? Like I've said to many stars I've interviewed, is that you clock off at the end of the day. Do you get many autograph hunters like chasing you around anywhere, or are you quite
Um,
good with that?
it's more like only autograph hunters at events really, and at the upfronts and so on. Autographs, you know what's happened now is autographs are a thing of the past. And I kind of got profile after that phase because once camera phones became something everybody had, it is literally always, can I have a picture? And that's both a good and a bad thing. It's a bad thing if you're feeling shitty and you don't
Yeah.
want to,
Yeah.
there's so many bad photos of me out there like that. It's a good thing because it's a punctuation. So you have a great tiny little engagement with someone who's a fan of the show or whatever, so nice to meet you. And this little moment that's punctuated by the photo and then that's done,
Yeah.
And so that can be quite a good thing as well. I find it's, if I'm walking about like in London or in a city, then it does tend to be every day, but it's not like I'm normally chased down the street or something like that,
Not yet. Not yet. So let's do some fan questions. So we've got Molly Rook. This is from Instagram. My question is, what was your favorite thing about making Brave New World?
My favorite thing about making it was definitely shooting the finale because like I said all the way through we just kind of touched base with him and I loved the character, But like when I was on Vampire Diaries, I wanted more stimulation. I wanted to be involved more. And that's what the finale gave me, just to really dig my teeth in and be a full lead of the show in that one episode. And that's what I was looking for, that level of engagement. And so certainly being able to explore the character, and also because, you know, the finale is by rights the most climatic and dramatic episode of the show. And so, yeah, that was it.
I cannot wait. I have actually been told a few things, but obviously I won't say it. So I can't wait to watch it. This is from Caitlin R. Thomas. If you were able to cast Persia in Brave New World, which character would she play? Mm,
Interesting. Um, you know, like she would be good as, I think she would be wicked as Helm.
right.
That character is, she is an alpha, and she runs these kind of huge parties, and she's very, very kind of theatrical in the way she does that. But then there's this very human side of her, which we see only behind closed doors. And I'd love to see Persia have a crack at that. I mean, she's my favorite actress. So like we've
Oh,
collaborated so many times. So I really believe like she can do anything. And I love to watch her in any kind of role. But at this moment, that's what comes to mind.
that's awesome. And Ella Wolfgirl 18, what a name. Um,
Awesome.
I think you've already answered this. My question is, what was your favorite scene to film when filming Brave New World, and why? From Ella Barker. Oh, her name is Ella Barker, not Ella Wolfgirl. So you've already answered that, I suppose. It's a finale, so I'm sure if Ella is UK based, she can see it on the 2nd of October, or
Yes,
she probably
particularly
knows.
the last scene, my last scene in the finale. Or there's one scene which I won't spoil for you, but it was in episode 6, and it's on a beach. We filmed it on a beach in Port Talbot, and that was just the best day. Going after being in the studios the whole time, going to this beautiful beach and filming there all day, and the scenes were so. It was 2 scenes we shot there back to back, so good and so much fun. That was one of my favorite days as well.
That's awesome. Episode 6. Mark
Mm.
that down. Then we've got the King Joseph Morgan. I love these names on Instagram. They're awesome.
Yeah.
Who did you love working with the most in Brave New World?
Um, I loved working with Harry Lloyd, who is just over your left shoulder there.
Yep.
He, yep, he plays Bernard, and I love that because we kind of bookend the show together. We have some scenes at the very beginning, and then we have my favorite scene in the finale, my favorite in terms of how it turned out, the work. Like if someone said, give me a show reel of what you think is your best scene in Brave New World, we're looking to employ you, that's the scene I would give them.
That's awesome. And then we've got one from Dessa. Yeah, Dessa. If you had a choice, would you still be an Epsilon or Alpha?
I'd still be an Epsilon because there's something about the underdog, man. He's got a ladder to climb and you want to see him go up it.
And the last question from the fans, Katie Lester. How has the Vampire Diaries impacted your life? And do you still get asked about Hex?
Katie Lester, man. I know that is. She's been at a bunch of conventions. Uh, yeah, I the Vampire Diaries changed my life. Like I said to you, you know, it was a
Yeah,
turning point in my career, certainly. Um, and it since then, I felt like I haven't had to worry about work. It's been more about what's the right job, as opposed to like I got to get an acting job. It's been what's the right job for me next. Um, and only Katie Lester still asks me about Hex. Let it go, Katie.
I'll let her know. And any plans on season 2 then? You mentioned it earlier on. Do we know if there's
No,
going to be a season 2?
I don't know for definite. Um, I know that the show's doing well, and I know that they're talking about it. Um, and I know that there's a lot of ideas, which I'm excited about should it happen. And I know that were I to be a part of it, uh, it would be a big part of it, which would be exciting for me. So
That is
we'll see.
awesome. That is awesome. And lastly, before we wrap up, what is next for you, Joseph? What is next on the board for you?
That depends on how quickly they get a bloody vaccine and make it safe, don't they? Doesn't I have I've been considering a few things. I like I said, I'm writing my horror film, which I really want to make, but the reality of making that is probably more like 2022, and then potentially season 2 of Brave New World, should that happen. There's another project that I may attach myself to, but that doesn't film until next year, so we'll see. I'm not sure about that yet.
Okay.
So it's up in the air. It's up in the air. There's nothing definite I can talk about or that I'm allowed to talk about at this stage, unfortunately.
That is fine. Completely understand. And the last thing, living in the States, what 3 things do you miss about the UK?
The pubs,
Yeah.
really, the pubs. That was a brilliant thing about doing Brave New World, going back, getting a little cozy corner with a pint, you know, and there not being flat screens everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Open fire,
Oh,
a nice pint,
yeah,
someone walking with their dog,
yeah.
just relax and just,
That's
yeah.
it. That's it. Um, I miss that. I miss the English countryside, you know, with the weather, like the
Yeah.
rain and the trees turning and the, you know, the hills of Wales. I love all of that. And then, of course, you know, the people more specifically, like my family and friends, you know, most of whom are there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, those are the 3 things
Bless
I.
you. Bless you. But we're all proud of you in the UK. You're obviously doing a great job and really looking forward to Brave New World on the 2nd of October. Thank you so much for spending the time. Joseph, thank you very much.
Oh, cheers. Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate it. It was a real pleasure. Thank you.